All right, James, thanks for joining us on DAO Talk.
Thanks for having me.
Super excited to chat with you.
Likewise.
So maybe you can get us started. Just tell me a little bit about your background, how you got into crypto, and then maybe lead up to what you're working on now.
Yeah, so I have a background, past life. I used to work in advertising and marketing for a bunch of different tech companies, kind of through the app boom and bust cycle. I got to learn a lot of interesting things about media types and different forms of marketing and community building and all of that, but nothing really like that remarkable in terms of any of the projects I worked on. But in 2014, I actually took like a mini sabbatical and went to South Korea to teach English, to do something totally different. And while I was there, I was sending money home to pay my bills, as one does, and I didn't fill out a remittance form correctly. And my funds got frozen, and I was freaking out. So I was like, I need to figure out how to basically illegally get money overseas. And so I, or not through the Swift banking system. So what I wound up doing was buying Bitcoin at the Bitcoin Center in Korea, in Itaewon, and, opening up a Coinbase account using like a bill that got shipped to my mom's house while I was over there, and then hooked it up to my bank at the time. And this was back in 2014, 2015. And once I had that moment of aha, like
it worked. This is so much more direct.
This is so cool, cheaper, faster, way more like shadowy. I love it. And I was just like, hooked.
Better vibes.
Yeah, I was just hooked from like the minute I did that. And I've just been heads down, haven't really been able to figure out anything else I'd rather work on since then. And so,
love it.
Yeah. That's my origin story for crypto.
Cool. Well, that was quite a while ago too. I would say that's officially OG status at this point, 2014. I'm sure people who have been in the space longer, but
yeah, no, I've met some like real OGs, like some original Bitcoiners, and like, yeah, I'm always like, it feels like I've only been in the space for like a year. Like the time has gone by super fast, and the rate of change in this space is ridiculous. So you really, you can use OG status as a badge of honor, I guess, but you can't really rest your laurels on it because everything changes so fast.
It's so true. Okay, so you've been, heads down building a crypto since 2014. What are the highlights? Like maybe you could tell me some of the main stuff you've worked on, and then would love to hear a little bit more about Jet Protocol and what you're working on these days.
Yeah. So one of the things that I started working on originally, I mean, if you go all the way back, the way that I learned about things was I would study them and write about them. And so that's exactly what I did. And I just was studying the use cases of crypto, various companies. And so I was just doing syndicated writing across a bunch of different small publications. And eventually, one of the articles I wrote got picked up, which I wrote about block apps, which is a spin out of Consensus, a private implementation of Ethereum. And I wrote about them getting into the Azure marketplace through Microsoft, which I thought was pretty cool. And I went and worked for them. And eventually I moved to New York, back from Korea. And the cool part of that was I got to be part of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. That was, also like I was there during 2017, which was a crazy year. And so, yeah, worked at block apps for a while. And then I decided I wanted to work on permissionless kind of open projects pretty much exclusively. And so there was an opportunity to join MetaMask as their kind of content community person. And I also wound up doing support. And so, I just wound up doing support for MetaMask during the bull run, which, which was
in 2017.
Yeah. For anybody who got a grumpy email from me, I'm sorry. I just want to go on the record. I tried to be nice to as many people as possible, but no, I mean, it was insane. Like the CryptoKitties, the perpetual EOS token sale, like all the ICOs, infrastructure issues, like, phishing, scamming. We were really like in the trenches back then. And it was really formative in terms of my point of view on users and how all applications should be user centric. Like the back end tech is obviously very stimulating for a lot of people to nerd out about, but if you don't have a user centric approach, especially in crypto, I don't think you're going to make it. It's like in crypto, it's so important to have good guardrails and good UX and have good support that feeds back into the product loop, because, it's especially for non-custodial applications. I mean, there's nobody to call and get your money back.
Yep.
It's permissionless, it's immutable, and once your money's gone, it's gone. And if people are losing money because of bad UX, like that's on you. That's not on them.
Yes.
So that's like something that really informed my views as I kind of went on in my career. And so spent a bunch more time at Consensus, kind of like on and off up until about 2019. And then I joined with Looney, which was a spin out from Tendermint, the team that Cosmos came out of, and worked on content support, BD with them as well. And that was an extremely fun job as well. Early on, I was very interested in staking and on-chain governance, and I loved kind of working at this intersection where it was like one app but interacting with Cosmos, the different Cosmos chains, and then Polkadot and Kusama. I just thought it was so cool to be able to interact with these different chains and governance and staking in the same place, and so had a great time working on that. They wound up getting acquired by Blockdaemon, which is a major infrastructure company in the space, and worked for them for a little while, few months, but had the itch to start my own thing, and wound up starting Jet with my co-founder, Will Barnes, who we worked together at Consensus. We met back in 2017 when I was at MetaMask. And so that's the short version of a long story.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a wild ride, but a super formative one. I had the same thought, like, as soon as you said, I was doing frontline support for MetaMask in 2017. Like, it's like, dude, that's got to be like the best user research foundation you could possibly have in crypto. Just like truly understanding the gaps, or like what users expect, that are newer to the ecosystem relative to like what is actually happening or being presented in the UI. And I feel similarly about UX. Like there are a lot of things obviously that are not yet possible to solve. Like we're still building out blockchain infrastructure, but I think most projects can do a lot better than they currently do. Even with the existing state of infrastructure underlying blockchains, just like telling the user what's happening in a clear way. I think like just your average blockchain application really doesn't give the user any context on what's going on. And that there's a lot of gains to be had there, even with the existing state of self-custody and scaling and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, blockchain apps have come a long way. Like dApps have come a long way, but in reality, like if you look at the difference between, say, MetaMask these days and something like Phantom on Solana, or like any of the other wallets on the other chains, I mean, more or less similar these days. And so there's a high bar to participating in the permissionless DeFi space.
Yep.
It's rewarding, but I mean, if you've never had an oh shit moment where you're like, oh fuck, I just sent money to the wrong address, then you're not actually like,
you're not doing it.
You haven't done, you've got more learning to do.
Yeah.
And like,
those, you probably haven't lived either,
that gut feeling of like, oh no,
it's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone, like gone.
It's gone forever. There's nobody I can call. If you haven't had that, then, and like being able to bounce back from that is, that's a tough part. And it's like, again, doing support for like non-custodial apps, I've seen some heartbreaking stories, like truly, truly heartbreaking stories. And it just like further galvanizes that like we have so much further to go. But then again, I've been hearing a lot of subcurrents recently about like, oh, well, the immutability of a blockchain makes it a shitty platform to do DeFi on. You should be able to reverse transactions. There should be somebody to sue to get your money back. And I'm always like super careful to like buy into that, because I'm like, at the end of the day, being sure that somebody can't shut down a transaction, like what happened to my account in Korea. I mean, I just, I try to be humble in this regard. It's like, I'm a white guy from America, like super privileged. And like for the first time in my life, I was realizing what somebody who, like a migrant worker who's sending money back home,
Yep.
must have felt like to some degree
Yep.
about like, oh, I have this money, but I have no fucking control over it. Like,
Yep.
it was a real like humbling experience because a lot of people are like, well, I like the way the system is. I like that there's counterparties I can sue, all this. It's like, well, yeah, like I guess if your life just goes great all the time, and you've got a good lawyer, yeah, like you could,
Yeah,
you lose.
liking that you can sue someone is the ultimate form of privilege, right? Because
Yeah.
it means that you have access to a functioning legal system, probably a lot of money,
Property
connections
rights.
to lawyers, property rights.
Yeah, exactly. And so to me, it just always comes back to like, yes, crypto is hard, DeFi is difficult, and we have to hold ourselves to higher standards. And we need to make the products as good as they can be from a UX perspective so that as many people as possible can get involved and learn and mitigate as much loss as possible. And that's just what drives me. Like, that's like always the main thing to me is like, don't give up on that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely something powerful there. And I'm always very hesitant when people suggest doing something that's counter to the natural properties of blockchain to make it more like some familiar experience, because even though it might make it better in some ways, you quickly get into territory where it's like, there's no need for the blockchain at all. You should just like keep doing your thing in the normal system. Like the way that like scaling disruptive technologies works is like there's some product market fit, but it's in something weird, right? Like the new technology doesn't do everything better than the previous system. It does some very specific thing that the old system can't do at all. And then eventually you make it better and better and better and better and better, and it scales to everyone. So it's like, I think abandoning the properties like of blockchains, it's not just like a political like question. It's just like a product market fit thing from my perspective. Like it's really important to like continue to lean into the immutability because that's like where the disruption is coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like, you also look at, there's immutability, and then from a DeFi perspective, like borrowing and lending in the space that, we're working in now is like, yeah, you still have over collateralized loans. And so it's like, there's incremental gains that you can make in over collateralized loans. And then like you're lowering the amount of collateral you need over time to eventually maybe like under collateralized or no, like uncollateralized, for instance, or people got really used to like, the cross margin borrowing and lending model where interest rates can vary quite widely, and then there's like a push towards fixed rate, fixed term, and like creating these incremental steps. And this space has been around for such a short amount of time, and it's accelerating. Like it's rapidly accelerating because of, smart contract capable blockchains. Ethereum, obviously was first, and like you're seeing other chains like come out that, have their benefits and their downsides that people are experimenting on. And that's what I'm here for. And so like anybody that's like, oh, it's not ready for prime time yet. It's like, no, I mean, like,
it's clearly not. I mean, like your average like boomer is not going to permissionly go on Jet Protocol and get a loan, but like eventually, soon TM, soonish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the changing macro conditions right now will probably create added pressure for things to change.
Yep.
And will create added innovation. So, I mean, yeah, I guess I just try to be pragmatic in terms of like not expecting too much advancement all at once.
Yep.
But also on the grand scheme of things, like I don't think things are slowing down. I think they're accelerating.
Not at all. Exponential growth is weird too, because like anytime you look on a relatively shortish time frame, like 3 months or even a year, it doesn't really look that fast. But as long as it's like an exponential pattern, as soon as you go to like 2, 3, 4 years, all of a sudden, even though the whole time it felt like it was relatively going slow, you're in a completely different place.
Yeah, it's like crypto's the one place where you can have an entire career's worth of experience in like 3 years.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like back in the day, like in like my old life, you might want to say like, oh, I've got 5 to 8 years experience to get like a senior management or like not even director level role. And at this point, it's like if you've been through one market cycle, you're basically, you've earned your stripes, and it's like,
Yeah, you're an OG.
yeah, go start your own company.
You're an industry veteran.
Exactly, which is also kind of cringe, but like it's just like there's no place like crypto in that way.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I would love to hear. So you have this like innovative borrow lend protocol on Solana. You have a background doing governance stuff too. You were talking about doing that in the Cosmos ecosystem. I think your co-founder Will has a background in governance too.
At Maker,
yeah, at Maker. So would love to hear. Like, I think you all are launching a DAO or have launched a DAO or planning to launch a DAO. Like, tell me about it. What are you thinking for governance? What does that look like on Solana? Like, are there primitives? What do they look like? Are you guys helping maybe pioneer some of those primitives? Like, how are you thinking about JetDAO?
So we started Jet Protocol early last year, and we started building out the DAO late last year. So we actually created the Swiss Association as a legal wrapper, and JetDAO is that's what we call the DAO, but like the Swiss Association, the Jet Association, is actually the legal wrapper for that. And so
Cool.
We used the SPL governance module as a base layer, and then we customized it to do what we needed. In Solana, there are some versions kind of like analogs to what I guess Tally might do, but none of them were quite ready when we needed to actually start implementing our plans for governance. And so we've been doing a lot of work on the back end and on kind of meat space planning for creating frameworks for governance decisions.
Cool.
So for us, it's always coming down to like, we need to have a robust framework for doing things related to the protocol that would decrease the risk of the system. And so the first thing we did was a collateral onboarding framework, an asset onboarding framework. And we spent a lot of time working on that based around the legal structure of the association that we built and using the SPL governance module that we customized for ourselves to create something that was bespoke to what we thought our DeFi protocol would be able to use. It's obviously not having something out of the box to use takes more time. We have to move a little bit slower to actually figure out, whether our ideas actually hit the pavement in the way that we think they will. So it's like, for example, we launched the platform last October, our V1 of the platform, with USDC, Sol, wrapped Bitcoin, and wrapped ETH as the assets on there.
Cool.
And the wrapped ETH that we were using was actually deprecated by the Solette wallet. And so, we weren't planning to have like an asset offboarding process, but we were like, okay, like we may need to delist assets through the DAO, through governance, and we need a framework for that. So it's like we realized we need to start working on that. We're also doing like ratifications of the actual, like doing affirmative votes on the existing collaterals just to put the actual process into action before we start adding new collateral types.
So you already have those collateral types when you launch the DAO. You'll run the existing collateral types.
Yeah, should we keep these?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like people are like, well, of course you're going to, but it's like, yeah, but
it's still good to like go through that motion and just and it's also just like, I guess, sort of like a show of good faith from it's like, no, we actually are serious about like this being a community, governed process. So we're going to start with our existing, what we have.
So we'll have an announcement soon about our governance committee, which is the front end filter for proposals that come from the forums, the off-chain voting.
Yep.
And so basically we have like these multiple levels of where people can participate in the DAO. You can join the forum, ask questions, get engaged through, just the non-binding vote, the signal voting, if you will. And then specifically for the assets, they have to do an application, and then the governance committee would actually go through a checklist of seeing, just minimum viable qualities that they need to have, whether it's liquidity for, being able to liquidate the assets if the positions need to be liquidated, and any legal issues that they might have, reputational, so qualitative and quantitative analysis of individual assets. And so getting community members involved as well in doing these collateral evaluations is like something we're trying to get going. So it's not just like us doing them every single application and every single evaluation. And so the forum is where we have the off-chain voting and discussion on the assets, and the governance committee will evaluate the application against what we're calling a codec, which is basically a checklist to make sure that it's a complete application. Then, if it is adequate, it can go to a on-chain vote. And if it's an on-chain vote, that's the binding vote.
Okay.
And so that kind of, in theory, helps us mitigate against some of the governance attacks we've seen, where things can just be proposed, voted on, and then are going to happen on chain.
Yep.
That is something that we definitely did not want to see happen by default.
Yep.
And so that's kind of the purpose of the governance committee.
Cool. Yeah. So there's like an initial curation from the committee, just a basic check, make sure this is viable. Then there's like more of the community shaping, like discussion and signaling, and then it goes to be, proposed as a transaction.
Yeah, we have I always say this, we have a ton of Maker DNA in our team.
Yep.
My co-founder worked at Maker, Will. We have folks from Maker helping us with these frameworks, helping create them specific to Jet and the model of like Jet's protocol. And then even some of our investors in the original fundraising that we did were ex-Maker folks. And so
cool.
Just to say that is that, it's aspirational to eventually have such critical mass of the protocol that we would need to eventually have, lots of different subcommittees.
Yep.
So like the main governance committee is never going to be able to process all the aspects of the protocol. And so there'll be different subcommittees spun up for, risk, regulatory, legal,
yep.
All these different responsibilities so that, it can be delegated throughout the DAO. And so,
yeah, in Maker, they call those core units, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so I think that, we're trying to set a good framework for us to grow as rapidly as we need to, but obviously we're moving slow at the beginning.
Yeah, it's like walk before you run. Okay, we have a really solid process for asset onboarding. Now we can think about all the rest of the things we want to decentralize and push out to the community.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm just curious, one follow-up question about, I guess, the on-chain proposal part. You mentioned mitigating risk of governance attacks. Are you planning any sort of delay between like when the voting ends and when the transaction is implemented?
Yeah, there's I want to say 2-week delay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so just another safeguard
basically
in place there. Yeah.
That's cool. Obviously, like adding a new collateral type, you're not necessarily introducing smart contract risk.
Right.
But for like protocol upgrades, we'd have to have a process for audit and all of that. And so that may change as well. Like a lot of these are very flexible and can be adjusted as we go.
Cool. Well, where are you today? Like, are you looking for people to get involved in the DAO? Or are you still kind of building and planning to do an announcement in the near future?
No, the DAO has been launched for several months now. We already have some core members that are very involved with the collateral onboarding right now. Like we've already gone through 2 votes. So USDC and Sol have already been affirmed, and then BTC is next. And then we're going to start doing assets we don't have on. So basically, we already have people involved, and definitely if there are people who are interested in being part of the early governance, we'd love to have them on. We have an active forum. We have a great community. The Jet community is great, but the larger Solana community has been supportive, and we're even starting to see people work across blockchains. Like we have Ethereum folks in our forum as well, who have been engaging with other DAOs like MakerDAO and
they see what's happening in Jet Protocol, see what's happening in Maker, see what's happening in Aave, and kind of cross pollinate some of those ideas.
They're not. We don't want people to come in and just nod their heads and say, "Yeah, great job." We want like critical feedback.
Yep.
We're all about critical feedback and like adjusting and and getting our assumptions checked, because in reality we have amazing developers building the product, and we're super lucky that we have a really great product. Governance is hard, and governance is the less well laid path.
Yeah.
And so, we're definitely learning from as many other folks as we can along the way. And so, yeah, definitely, long story short, we would love to have anybody that's interested in DeFi governance come and join us and check out what we're doing and give us feedback.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, James. I really enjoyed digging into your background and also what you're doing with JetDAO. Anyone who's interested in participating, please do go check out JetDAO and see how you can get involved. If it's cool with you, I want to shift to a slightly more open-ended question. I need some hot takes from you. It's one question with two parts. Technically, two separate questions, but they're connected. The first one is, what is your favorite part about working in crypto? You've probably covered some of this, but I would love to hear more about like what keeps you in the space. You said you can't imagine working anywhere else. So want to hear more about that. And then there's also the flip side. Like, what's one thing about how crypto works today that you don't like or you think is a challenge that we need to tackle as a community over the coming years?
My favorite thing about crypto that I just love nerding out on is self-custody. I mean, I just love being able to hold my own funds off of an exchange, out of a bank, just put them away. Like, I know I know how to access them. I know where the keys are. Like, I love that. And I love to just, I love to blue pill or whatever color pill people on that. It's just it's so rewarding building that aspect of financial empowerment into your lifestyle.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part. The thing I dislike the most, the thing that like kind of gives me heartburn is these market cycle swings. This is depending on whether you count this as a bear market, I'm just going to call it a bear market. This is my third bear market. And it's not the price drops that bother me. It's like the wild swing and enthusiasm and like the comings and goings of people. And, I hope these cycles get less extreme.
Yep.
But, I have no control over that. But that's, to me, like, it's about staying focused on the long-term vision. And like when volatile events keep happening, it's just kind of tough to keep some folks' heads in the game. So that's one thing I'm not crazy about.
It's tough on the upside and the downside. When you're going up, it's like, but what if I should quit my job and just mint NFTs so that I can like become the world's greatest NFT flipper and make it and then go to retire in the Bahamas next to all of my crypto friends? And then on the way down, it's like, well, none of this is clearly going to work. Also, I'm poor now, so I'm going to...
Yeah, I can't show my face at Thanksgiving this year.
Yeah, exactly. It's like tough in both ways. I totally agree. If we could find ways to kind of like smooth things out a little bit, I think it'd be definitely like healthier for the industry as a whole.
Well, yeah, I guess like this is not financial advice, but I would just say like, you just hate to see people buy into the narratives that it's going to go like 100,000x when it's already like up big and they don't take profit. And then they have these massive paper gains and then they lose it because they didn't take any profit. And it's like,
it's tough to watch for sure.
It's so tough to watch. And so if you're principled and you kind of have some investment philosophies, you don't screw people over. Like, this is a great industry to work in.
Yeah. Not financial advice, but allocate a responsible amount of your portfolio to crypto. Self-custody the funds.
Yes.
You'll be living great.
Yes. 100%.
Cool. Well, I have a last question for you. It's not crypto related, although you can make it crypto related if you want, which is, what is your favorite place in the world and why?
Favorite place in the world? I love coastal Maine. Casco Bay, Maine.
Oh, yeah. I'm
a seafoodie, love rocky beaches. That's the place I go when I don't want to think about crypto or anything work related. Yeah. And so, Casco Bay, Maine is probably my sweet spot.
That sounds amazing. I haven't made it up that far. Like, I've been to the White Mountains in New Hampshire, but I've never made it all the way to Maine. I've heard the coast is incredible up there.
Absolutely.
I'll have to check it out.
Yes.
Cool. Well, thanks so much. Great being with you. Thanks for taking some time to talk with us on DAO Talk. Hope you enjoy the rest of the day at DAO NYC.
Thanks, Alan.
Cheers.